People, DG, I'm back again. Now, feeder clubs. Now, it doesn't matter if you're essentially a monopoly of clubs like Manchester City. They've got feeder clubs all over the place now, which they exploit loaning out players. They can exploit commercially, and which you're seeing a couple of times, can enable them to sign certain players in nations and stuff like that. I think Manchester City are good with that. Obviously, Chelsea have Vitesse, and it's slightly different in that it's also essentially a farm for them to loan players out with and stuff like that. Other people might have feeder clubs and things like that, but they're the two examples I have. I believe Arsenal need to get back on this sort of thing or take inspiration from them two clubs, because first and foremost, I would probably say a Dutch club, Dutch, Portuguese, maybe even Spanish, because you can get away with work permits in these nations, to be honest with you. That's why I'm saying these places. I say it firstly because if you look at, I don't know if I've brought out the vid at this point, but if you look at places like Serbia, which is a hotbed of talent at the moment, in all positions, Serbia have done some good things in terms of developing players. Or if you look at Senegal, which have a lot of African nations are coming out with tuning out some terrific quality players, but I'd say Senegal in particular, for me, over the last 2 years or so, them two nations there, I could see us scouting there, finding the next this and that, but work permits is an issue. This is why you typically see a lot of Senegalese players go through the likes of Metz and French teams, because their work permit issues or rules around that are easier to exploit or get around. Or a lot of Serbian players, they go to Benfica or certain other clubs. That's where we fall behind. If we can, like you saw, even with South American talents, work permit issues, again, Benfica and to a degree Dutch clubs makes it easier. So if we were able to identify, you've all heard the story, we looked for Di Maria, and so did a couple of English clubs, but work permit issues made it impossible. He went to Benfica, and you've seen the rest of his career. The next Di Maria that pops up, if Arsenal could be in a case of signing him, obviously he can't play in England, but if we could loan him out to a sister club in Holland, which have similar philosophies to us, in which we have a good agreement with, they play him there, they coach him in a similar way, we're in constant dialogue to see his progress. If and when the time comes that he can get a work permit, we get him back to England. If not, he plays in a decent level standard of football, and it could eventually be sold on for profit. We have had established links with Spanish clubs and obviously Belgium clubs, in which we used to use to exploit bringing in players from the Ivory Coast. I think this is something we need to get at, to be fair with you, because this is. I look at our scouting, and we have got some good scouts. We identify targets, but there are some things we're going against. Now, there isn't. I'm not gonna lie. There is a catch-22 in that you become a bit like Vitesse, in that Chelsea just farm off a lot of their players. Some that probably are never gonna make it or have a sniff in there. Obviously, it's good. It could be good for Vitesse because they've got a whole host of players playing. But I don't think Chelsea forced them to play players. But I've got a job to play devil's advocate and give you guys all sides of it. In short, people, it's like. Obviously, we can scout France and sign players and things like that, but that's a hard one in itself. Obviously, you see, I think Malcolm would have been. I don't know the work permit issues, but I don't think Malcolm would have had an issue getting a work permit in England. But you look at when he left Brazil and went to Bordeaux, for example, if there was work permit issues, Bordeaux were able to exploit that. He stayed there for a season or two. Obviously, you saw him go to Barcelona. They've made their profit. That could be us, or that could be us with Malcolm in our possession. But if a work permit can't get bought, we're gonna lose out time and time again. So for the young South American talents that don't yet qualify for a work permit, for the young African talents who it's even a double shed, because if you don't qualify for the work permit through not playing enough times for your country, and your country might not be ranked too tough on the FIFA nations, we're being disadvantaged. For the Serbian targets, we're being disadvantaged. These are 3 different regions which we can exploit to bring in players, either for profit or players to go into our first team. Because out of them 3 countries I've said, or nations I've touched on, I'm sure I've aroused your imagination, and you can invent plenty of examples or scenarios or personal things you've read which you can relate to this. I personally believe we need to set up a feeder club, not just a feeder club for the sake of it, not just a feeder club to be commercial. Obviously, I want commercial partnerships, but I'm talking strictly football and strictly strategic, because yeah, man, we need to be able to sign these sort of players. Even Yaya Toure couldn't get a work permit at this club, and now you see the rest of what happened to him. Obviously, he was at a different stage in his development, but if this is the 2019 Yaya Toure, I want to be able to contract him to the club in some capacity, people, is all I'm saying. So, yeah, man, I do believe this is an area we need to look at, man, and we should, really and truly, because scouting is only half the job. We need several strategies. But I think I've said enough. I think you get my viewpoint. So if you wish, get in the comments, subscribe, and do the rest. But if not, people, DG, I'm out.